Hello. So, like I said in the last episode of Adeline's Diary, I'm taking a quick break between 1929 and 1930 to read a special diary that I'm told is haunted. I'm going to try to read it all today, so this might be a long one. I will say there are children playing somewhere outside. I hear them once in a while. Don't hear them right now. I have two cats with little bells on the bed, thank goodness. They're not running around right now, so let's hope they stay there, hugging my headphones. I've set this up, hopefully, so maybe we can catch something. This is a reflective surface here, glass. Here's a mirror, and I have a crystal ball right here. It's a smoky quartz. That's my camera remote thing right there, so I can watch my recording. Phone right there, and we should get started. This is the diary from 1901. The woman's name, she left her calling card in here, is Miss Evelyn Quinby. I have not read this before. I want this to be my first reading. There is a picture of her in here as well, but I think I'll wait to show you that in case anything shows up, because what I was told happened, is that upon the first reading of this book 30 years ago, a woman showed up. A woman appeared in the doorway, and she looked like the woman in the picture. But I'll show you the picture at the end, so you're not influenced. Let me know if you see anything. Well, obviously I'll be watching this as I edit, so hopefully I will see something, but if I miss something, you have to let me know. I'm going to attempt to be as quiet as I can while I'm not reading, not move around too much. Maybe leave some pauses. I might not edit this one as much. We'll see. As I said, I have not read this before. This is what the handwriting looks like. Might be a little difficult for me. No, I don't want to cover up too much of the screen. Well, I might find a way of like scanning and sharing that all. But let's get started, shall we, with our haunted diary and see if anything happens. Julia and I were very tired after our New Year's. Oh no, it's hard to read. So we did not get up until late, and then went out walking in the afternoon. We went over to Manchester to start with Mrs. Manning Jr. and go to a dance given by Mrs. Manning Sr. It was all very, young Mrs. Manning was fine, and her little house is a perfect beauty. Her dance was a very pretty one, and I met some delightful people. We did not get home to bed until very late, and were tired out after having a beautiful time. Everyone was kind to me. I wonder what she's writing this with. It looks like actually a fountain pen, because it runs out of ink and then gets darker again. January 2nd. Left for Leonard on the 7:45 train, and also left my dressing bag at the in the afternoon. went for a drive with Mrs. S. and Mr. and Mrs. Sargent to St. P.S. in the morning. We had been ill, but boating with Mr. Hubbs and Mr. and Mrs. Hollins. That night, Mrs. Strutter gave a dinner for him and his friends from, I hate place names, you know. Is it college? Might not be. Then we went to the Dartmouth dramatic performance given by the men that dined with us. It was very good. Then we all went to a dance, which Sam managed most successfully. Had a very good time. Mr. and Mrs. Sargent were fine. Liked them enormously. Mrs. Hobbs called in the afternoon. This is rough. Oh my goodness. Have we seen anything yet? I guess I should look up. Use my cats as ghost detectors. Got up early to see the sergeants off and were dead tired. Then spent the morning at home with Tom and his friend. They left for, can't read this, is it college? Might be college at noon. Slept all afternoon and got up for dinner that night. Mr. Hill called. Julia was almost dead to the world, but I was feeling very fine. Mr. Hill was very nice, and we had a very pleasant call from him. January 4th. Spent the morning shopping, and then in the afternoon went over to Manchester to make our party calls. Had a very nice visit with Mrs. Manning. Also did home shopping. I don't know, in things for our trip to Suffolk. That eve, Mr. Holden called. I actually don't know where she lives. Sounds like English places. Suffolk and, what did she mention? Manchester. Yeah. That would be interesting. I have not found diaries from England before. January 5th, left at noon for the house party. Miss Hobbs and I up at their summer home, Lake something, looks like it's just an S. Had lots of fun going up in the train, and when we got to the place, went in sleighs? Sleighs over Lake Sonnefeld, can't read this, to the house. It was Pierce. It was so old driving over. It was so cold. It was fierce. It was so cold driving over. Mr. Hobbs and I woke at the stall for supper. After supper, all went skating. And then we all played cards. Mr. H and I won. The party consisted of Miss, and Mr. Hobbs, Mr. Hill, Mr. and Mrs. Henry Hollis, Mr. something, Mrs. something, Julia and myself. The place is beautiful and a very something and everyone delightful. Let's take this. How far? She didn't fill it the whole way. Thank goodness, because it's taking me a while. She got up to May. Oh dear. Well, they're short. Anyway, 6th, went skiing in the morning, I believe. Then drove over the lake to telephone. Some skated, but I do not. So drove with Mr. Hobbs that afternoon. We all went over to Sunnyvale Harbor in an old something old-fashioned sleigh. Took the toboggan and had a something fine time sliding down hills. Miss H, Mr. something, and the Hollises waited home, and the rest of us came back in the sleigh. Had a fine time. The tobogganing was fine. Mr. Hobbs and Mr. Hill, who were very nice, talked as it was Sunday. Mr. Hobbs and Mr. Hill went out to telephone, but were not gone long. Everyone jolly, had a fine time. She uses the word fine a lot. January 7th, walked over the ice. Others skated to the station to get the provisions and candy Mr. Hill and Mr. something sent for. Also the Kodak. Mr. Lind spent the rest of the day taking pictures. Mr. and Mrs. Hollis left late in the afternoon, but we all had a fine time. Skiing? I think it's skiing. Before they left. Then I went on snow shoes with Mr. H and the rest on sleighs? Skis. The K looks funny. Skis, maybe. That evening, Mr. H and I worked part of the supper, and in the eve we played cards, and Mr. H and I, beat them all. January 8th. Went out all morning, and late that afternoon left for home. Mrs. Hobbs was simply fine, and we all had a beautiful time. Arrived home to find Mrs. Strutter ill in bed, and we are very tired and glad to get to bed early. Went to a tea in the afternoon, late, and then to see Mrs. Hollis. She wanted us to dine, but would not, as we had not son. Mr. Strutter. I wanted to visit with him. Mrs. Strutter is improving. This is difficult. This is not hard to read. January 9th. Did not get up until late. Went out walking and stopped by to see Miss Hobbs. That afternoon went driving with Mr. Hobbs and had a fine time. He was very talkative, and the drive was beautiful. Had callers in the evening. Something came home, and very, very pleased to see him. Ian? Can't read that. Someone came home, and we were all pleased to see him. Oh my, time's flying. January 10th, left early in the morning for Boston. Okay. Then went over to Mrs. and Mrs. Sargent's. A lot of men came in to call and took us walking. Saw all the Harvard College buildings and went into Memorial Hall, had a dinner party that night, and all night into the theater to see Sam something. It was fine. Then had a supper at the something. Did not get home until late, but had a fine time, and everyone we met was simply fine to us. How many times is she going to say this? The Sargents are the most delightful young married people I have ever met. This apartment is a beauty. January 11th. Went out walking with some of the men who came back to lunch. And then we all went into Boston to the theater, came home and dined, and then dressed for the something party, and had a lot of fun. Something of the finest men I have ever seen. Had a very nice supper. Did not get to bed until late, but could have sat up all night. The men were so fine. Yeah. I'll have to stop in about a minute because it's already been almost 20 minutes. Oh my gosh. January 12th. Went over to Mr. Perry's rooms and had a fine time. Then went into Boston to Mother Strutter. No, Mr. and Miss, I don't know. Strutter and Miss H. all had a beautiful lunch at the something Lorraine, I don't know, and went to see Ben-Hur. It was very good, and Mr. S was fine. Oh my gosh. Left for 11 chord. Mr. Hobbs and Mr. Lund went over with us. Found Mrs. S better, but not up. Had a lovely time. January 13th. I don't think we're going to get through this. 1 minute. Okay, we're back. Hope we didn't miss a ghost. January 13th, did not get up until late. Had callers in the afternoon, and in the evening, Mr. Hobbs called. In the morning, went out to St. Paul's School to do something. It was very fine. Saw Philip Muir and enjoyed a short visit with him. The ride out to the school was fine. Lots of snow, but not too cold. January 14th. Went out walking in the morning. In the afternoon, Phil and his friend came to call at 2. She has a lot of men coming over. Later, Miss Hobbs came in, and then her brother came and took us all for a drive, which was fine. Then we all stopped at Miss H and had a spirit with her. No, wait, a visit with her mother. Julia and I went with Mr. Hobbs and Mr. Hill to a cotillion? It was a very pretty affair, and cotillion, I guess. It was a very pretty affair, and we had a fine time. January 15th. We're out all morning and afternoon and dressed for dinner as Dr. L of Darty dined with us. Then Dr. G. Gallagher called just as we were leaving for a card party at the Allen Hollis's. Had a very fine time. Took the first prize. Had a very nice supper, and then the men all rang Julia, and I took the Hobbs home in our carriage. January 16th. Wednesday morning, went downtown, and in the afternoon, Miss H and Mr. H, Julia and I drove out to the something club, and Mr. Hill came out later. We had supper out there and got home rather early. It was an awful night, lots of snow on the ground, but we were all, I don't know, something about when we got home. Dr. Gallagher was something in the party. January 17th, went out calling in the morning and saw Miss Hobbs and Mrs. Lund, and in the afternoon Miss H came and took tea with us and stayed to dine, and Mr. Hill and Mr. Hobbs came in, and we all had a fine time. I was more than sorry to think it was the last. I don't know. I would see of them all. They had all been so nice to me. I can never forget the Strutter family and all they did for me. It was a pleasure to be with them. Any ghosties yet? Anything? Friday, January 18th, left early in the morning for Boston. Julia went in with me, and we visited the art museums and the water something society, and then went to the station. I had lunch, left on the 1 o'clock for New, oh please tell me where you live, New Hamlet. I'm gonna have to get help with that one. Right there. It's an H. New Hanks. It was a very cold, lonesome ride. Oh, I think she spelled some things wrong. It makes it more difficult. Annabelle met me at the station. It's a nice name, and I was very glad to see her. That evening, Billy, Annabelle, and I went to the opera and heard Madeline Simbridge. No, it's not probably right. She was very good. Was awful. But the company was awful. Was awfully tired and glad to get to bed. Billy, Annabelle, and I left New Haven at noon, and at 1 o'clock, Frank and Elizabeth Hubbard got on the train, and we went up to New York as something is at the station. We were met by Mr. L something and Dick Hubbard and all. Went up to see Annie Russell in a royal family. It was simply fine. The thing I have seen, the best thing I have seen this year. Then we all went over to the Waldorf, and why is that filled in like blue pen? And danced, and did not leave for New Haven until late. We were all pretty tired. She seems to have a fun life. January 20th, prom Sunday. I don't know. Went to something with Annabelle. Went to chapel with Annabelle and the professor, and enjoyed seeing all the men and girls were stunning. In the afternoon, Dr. and Miss Ring called. Also, some young men for Mr. Stutz was one. He spent most of the afternoon, and I liked him very much. He is very, very, I want to say fine, very and quiet. A musician. We had a very pleasant time, as we had so many things in common. Ooh, will she marry him? He is from Brooklyn, and we had some mutual friends. So she must be pretty young, looking for a husband. January 21st, went out walking in the morning and had callers in the afternoon. In the evening, went to the something club concert. It was fine, and I enjoyed it immensely. Left Annabelle in bed. In fact, she went to bed Sunday? No, that's weird. Sunday afternoon with a bad cold. Contracted in New York Saturday. Oh dear. Hope Annabelle will be okay. January 22nd, had a call and something with a meeting. I don't know. With from, can't read that name. Then in the afternoon, it's getting worse here, this handwriting. Went with Mrs. something to all the, wow. Had a great time. Saw Mr. Oh my gosh. Mr. something. He is most attractive and interesting. Oh boy, all these men. January 23rd, and I'm sorry I can't make out some of this stuff. Got up early and went to Mann's at 6:30. Heard Father father something, and then had a little talk with him after Mass. So she's Catholic. Got that. January 24th, went walking in the morning, and in the afternoon, Billy and I went to the symphony, which was very good. Saw Mr. Still there and talked with him. That evening he came over to call and was fine. He plays beautifully. He does something beautifully. And I just enjoyed hearing him. He really is very nice. January 25th, went downtown with a blank. Didn't fill it in her name. In the morning. And then to call on Dr. Ring. Had a fine visit with her, and after lunch went to call on Mrs. something. It's also blank. Can't remember who you visited today. In the evening, Mr. Still, that's probably not right, came and took me to the theater to see blank. It was fine. How do you not remember what you saw? Saturday, January 26th, went to chapel, which is spelled wrong, but at least I figured that out, with the professor, and heard Bishop Potter of New York. In the afternoon, Mr. Still came, and we went for a long walk, got home, and found a lot of callers, in parentheses, men. Had a very fine time. Oh my goodness. Why are these men coming over? January 27th, went to church with Billy and heard Bishop Potter of New York. In the afternoon, went for a walk with Mr. Still out Whitney? And then got home in time to see a lot of callers. Mr. S came over in the evening, and we had a fine visit and a lot of music, and I must say I was pleased to hear him play. It was delightful. Oh, men who can play instruments. For a man to sit down at the piano, my goodness, it's really is wonderful. January 28th. Went into New York on the 9:30 and took a cab up. Really? Would it be a cab? Did they have cabs? I don't know. Up to Helen's. She and the baby were there for lunch, and after lunch I went down to the something office and was not successful in finding father there. Went back to Helen's and then took the 6 o'clock for home, and was delighted to get a rest, for I was about tired out. January 29th, reached home at, came up on the car with Theo Fletcher, so had a nice little visit with him. Mother and Winnie were busy getting ready for a tea, which Mother was to give on Wednesday to meet Mrs. I don't know what this letter is supposed to be. S something. Julia Ward. something. Francis came up in the afternoon, and so did Lizzie. Lizzie, maybe it's an L. Lizzie. My stomach. Wow, this is taking longer than I thought. We finished January. Let's see where we're at here. January 30th, went up to see Frances, but as she was not home, someone's in the driveway, went in to see something and had a fine visit. Then went back to Frances, and had lunch with her. Maybe Frances. Came home and dressed for the tea. It all went off very well, and everyone had a good time. In the evening, I went over to see Mrs. Fletcher and had a nice visit with her. January 31st, wrote letters until 11. I then went up to see Sally Brussels to a French class. Helen and Myra Plum. It was very nice. In the afternoon, went down to see Bill Goodwin. Billy? I then went over to see Julia. There's that letter again. I don't know what that is. Frombridge? And we walked downtown, wrote all the way? Don't know. Maybe wrote all the way. Okay, so that's January. I have to stop because the battery's going to die now. Okay, so I've got a little ways to go here. Maybe I can't do it in one sitting. Can we get through February? Why does this take so long? Well, I have to stop the camera for a moment, so let me think. Okay, here's the plan. My camera apparently only has about 18 minutes left on the SD card. I'm going to see how far I can get through February, and that will be the video for today. I will export, and I will continue reading since I'm here, and hopefully finish up the rest of it for a part 2. So you'll have to come back for a part 2, because I really don't want to make videos that are over an hour long. So let's get started, because I need a bigger SD card. Friday, February 1st, 1901, went downtown to see about having some pictures framed after lunch. Went in to see Mabel Field, and then went to see Lizzie and had tea with her. She was home but sick in bed, so did not see him. Her husband probably. Had a fine visit with Lizzie and Mrs. Fletcher. Then Ernest something came up to see me in the evening, and we had a very pleasant visit. How is she ever going to choose between these men? And my cat is smiling at me. It's so adorable. February 2nd, went down to see Lizzie and also had a fine visit with Theo. It must be a T. Theo. Then took lunch with Billy, or Belle? It might be Belle. Don't know if it's okay. And I went to the theater to see Mr. Southard and Virginia Harnett in Hamlet. It was fine. Did I skip one? It was fine. Nope. February 8th, went to church with the Fletchers, then went there for dinner and had a very pleasant afternoon. It snowed very hard all afternoon, so Mrs. F asked me to stay to supper. Belle came in late in the afternoon, but would not stay, but I did and had a very nice time. Got home about 9 o'clock and found someone here with Herbert, so sat and talked with him and then went to bed. Oh, 3rd. 8th. No wonder I thought, yeah, okay. February 4th. Took lunch with Mrs. File. Don't know. Fight? Found she had been ill with a cold, but was better. Mr. and Mrs. F. Both enjoyed hearing about my trip. In the afternoon, went over to see Colith and spent the night. Did not expect to, but she wanted me, so I did. February 5th. Stopped downtown on my way home from Edith's and met somebody and came home with her in their sleigh. Had a nice visit with her. In the afternoon, went to a large card party at Bill's for Mrs. G. Edgar. Panlitha Page served chocolate. C. Sibley tea and Helen Stern something tea? No, something ice. Walked home with Mrs. Frank Clark. Father returned home in the morning. Harry came up in the afternoon. Late, I took dinner. February 6th, went to a concert and heard Hitcher Norton sing. He has a fine voice. I enjoyed it immensely. Oh my gosh, this scribbles. And did very well after the concert. Went to a theatrical party at Sizzles for Julia Trainbridge, and then to a tea at Lillian B. Strang's. Wow. I wonder if she could read her own handwriting. February 7th, went up to the Plums to the French class, and Joe something came up to lunch and spent the afternoon after dinner. There is someone walking around downstairs. After dinner, I went up to Joe's to the SSC meeting. Had a very nice time. Served coffee, and I was to something, but got interested talking, so did not find time talking. It's a mess. I mean, I've seen worse, but February 8th, took lunch visit, and then Mrs. Something came and did my nails late in the afternoon. I went downtown with Francis. We went in to see Harry and had a very fine time. Went to bed early. This is hard. Anything happening? I haven't noticed anything. Evelyn. February 9th, went down to see Lizzie in the morning and took lunch with her. Then we met Sally Russell there at the theater, saw Hackett in Pride of Jemico, which was fairly good. After the theater, Sally and I went to the something reflection, and in this there, oh my gosh, I went over to see Mrs. Frank Fletcher. February 10th, spent the morning at home. At noon, Bill and Miss Palms came, and late in that afternoon, Will Barber called. Lizzie, Billy, Alfred, something, Ernest White, and Dr. Shirley took supper, had lots of fun. Please slow down with your writing, girl. February 11th, went down to see Lizzie, and in the afternoon went to something with the Plunks, and then drove up to Harry's with Joe Langton. Gracie, Harry, and I went to the theater to see Clara Liffman and Louis Mann. It was awful. Went back to Herrick's and spent the night. Oh my, Lizzie's. Lizzie? No, there's an R in there. Oh, February 12th. Came home early, dressed, and went with Sally Russell to Edith Butler's lunch. There were 20 of us, and we had a beautiful time. Did not get home until late. Then Edith came up to dinner and spent the night. I'm going to have to skip some words and sentences because I'm having a hard time. February 13th, went down to see Lizzie, and then we went over to see something about presents, which very pretty, called on Pauletta Page. Oh, don't lose connection. And then went to the Plums tea given for Charlotte, something about having coffee now. February 14th, had a French lesson in the morning, and in the afternoon went to the Sibley Harwood wedding. It was a very pretty little wedding. Charlotte, something looked fine, and we all had a good time. Took dinner at the Fletcher's. Mr. Lane was there. Theo walked home with me. Ooh. February 15th, took my first, what kind of lesson is that? Something lesson, and liked it very much. Oh dear. What is it? This word, don't know. Somebody came and did my hair, so I had to spend the day in the house. In the evening, went to the something dance with Walter Brooks and had a fine time. February 16th, took lunch at the Russell House with Julia, whatever her last name is, Mr. Rory of Flint, and oh my gosh, names. Then we all went over to Wonderland and then to Miss Stern's tea, and then from there to Miss Lynn something. I took dinner at Edith's, and we went to the comedy club. Theo acted and was splendid. In fact, the affair was much better than usual. So Theo is an actor. Went back and spent the night at Edith's. Okay, comedy club, got it. I think she went there earlier too. February 17th in the morning, went up to St. Joseph's Church. Heard a splendid sermon, got home until lunchtime. Dr. Gilman came to call, and after he left, I went down and had supper at the Goodwins. February 18th, the French class met here at 11 o'clock, and in the afternoon I had a letter to for Miss something of Flint, who was visiting the guest of Mrs. Shirley, came up and had a fine time. In the evening I was to have played whilst at the Fletchers, but Mrs. M. and Jane was ill, and as Winnie was ill with a cold, I substituted for her at a card party. Mrs. Seymour's had a fine time. Out for something, but and I lost event. I don't know, 4:30 in the morning. The whole house was up as Winnie was worse, and we had to send for the Dr. Shirley. February 19th, went downtown and then stopped by at Billy's and had a nice visit with her. Bells? Had a nice visit with her, came home and dressed for the, don't know, Wendell wedding, something Juliet Wendell wedding. I took Belle to the wedding with me. We went to the church and sat in the gallery and then went to the house. It was all very pretty, and Mary looked well. Okay. I don't know. I think we're going to have to stop there because my camera's going to run out. So we've gotten to February 19th there. I am going to take a lunch break and then film the rest of this for a part 2, and we'll spread this out. Sorry I couldn't do this all in one session. And I don't know if anyone noticed any ghosties, anything. Did you hear anything? I didn't see anything. All of my reflective surfaces are behind me. Oh my gosh, wouldn't it be kind of scary if there was a ghost in the mirror behind me? Why did I do that? But, well, I'm hoping for something, you know? I want my own little ghost story. Well, that's it for today. So, fingers crossed there's some kind of ghost in the footage. I will see you again for part 2.